Hello and welcome to this edition of Beat Teacher Burnout. Are you a teacher or a leader or an educator who is struggling with feelings of overwhelm, wondering about your triggers? What's all this about? Is there anything we can do about it? Well, we think there is. And I'm joined today by Rachael Kobylecki, who has been a teacher and leader for many years in schools. Welcome, Rachael.
Hi, Rowena. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Why don't we launch straight in and you could tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Rachael.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Rachael Kobylecki. I used to be a teacher and a leader in the UK and internationally for 15 years. And now I'm the founder of School Leader Coaching, which supports school leaders through coaching, surprise, surprise, and group coaching and one-to-one coaching and some training to help them untangle the challenges of the job.
Amazing. So, Rachael, I know you have some amazing insights into how teachers and leaders can overcome the overwhelm of the role. So why don't you give us your first top tip?
So for me, really, it's about having a really, really deep level of self-awareness. So really being able to know yourself, know what works for you, know what makes you tick, know what charges you and gives you that energy, whether that's in school or out of school. But also on the flip side of that, really having a deep awareness of what drains your energy, what it goes against, everything that you believe, and what makes things feel harder both in school and out of school. And then having the ability to reflect on that and decide on strategies to get more of the good bits, the charges, the excitement and the joy, and less of the things that drain you and make you unhappy.
Wow, I love that. And in my first book, actually, I found a statistic, a really big piece of research on self-awareness, and it said that it's over 80% of us think we are self-aware. And in fact, the reality is under 20% of us are, which means chances are I'm not as self-aware as I thought I was. And I really thought I was. So this is a real challenge and something that I'm passionate about. Well, everyone, but educators especially, stopping to think, how can we develop our self-awareness? So go ahead and dig into this one, Rachael.
So I'm a huge fan of positive intelligence, which is based on the idea that we have this team of internal, he calls them saboteurs, I like to call them mind monsters, this team of mind monsters that basically they're there to look after us, they're there to keep us safe. It's your limbic brain, all that evolution stuff. But in actual fact, most of the time, the dangers that we're presented with now aren't actually that dangerous. And so these mind monsters kick in with the view to keep us safe. But generally, they just tend to keep us small or keep us from taking really positive action or really useful action. So for me, it's about knowing those voices, knowing that it's often called negative or unhelpful self-talk. So it's about recognizing when those messages are coming in, like you might hear it as actual words. I don't know, sometimes I talk about the voices in your head, which I don't know, but that kind of, it's sort of a message that comes in almost. You can maybe think of it like a ticker tape at the bottom of the news or something like that, that just is something that's perhaps leading you to think unhelpful thoughts, or to then behave. It will then influence your behavior to make you behave in a way that's not necessarily particularly helpful or productive for you or for the situation that you find yourself in. So for me, one of the best things to do is just really start to notice those voices, those messages, those triggers that trigger them, and start to track them. Keep a little journal. I know, Rowena, you love a journal. So keeping a journal of these unhelpful messages will help you be able to spot the kind of patterns for when they kick in, the situations that are happening in when these voices pipe up, maybe the people that you're with, all those kind of things. So really trying to spot patterns for when these negative or unhelpful voices start to pipe up, because while they might be described as negative self-talk or unhelpful self-talk, they are actually helpful to a point, because they can act as a trigger, to act as a little flag to be like, oh, hey ho, something's not quite right here. You might want to think about what you do next. So while they're not very nice, they are useful, but you've just got to know how to manage them and shut them down quickly.
Okay. So if step one is to start to become more aware of your sort of inner talk, if you like, or your saboteurs, what would step two be?
So step two is tracking them. Start to, like I said, like start to kind of really keep note of what the patterns are of when they arise. Like for me, I really don't like conflict. So in situations of conflict, I know that, one of my saboteurs is going to pop up and be like, right, you need to do everything you possibly can to avoid this conflict happening right now. And that might lead to some not particularly productive or helpful behaviors on my part. So it's like recognizing the patterns of when these voices pipe up and what they say to you.
Okay, so for the teachers who are listening to this and or leaders and saying, well, frankly, I feel like I'm not good enough. That's my overarching self-talk message. I can't do enough. There's never enough time. I'm totally overwhelmed. Where would you start them?
So I suppose it's again listening to when they chime up. Like there's going to be a pattern for when that happens, but also it's about taking a step back from that and calming yourself down from that. So one of the ideas that these voices happen when we're in our limbic brain, when we're in that heightened fight flight response. We're looking for a danger, and there it is. So it's first about calming yourself down, calming your brain down, and moving to the sort of rational side of your brain, the right side of your brain that's not being controlled by these emotions at the moment. So I like to use mindfulness in that respect. So just mini moments, not talking like big half-hour meditations or anything like that, but just using small amounts of time throughout the day to just bring myself back to my present moment, bring myself back out of my head and into my body. And that might be through breathing or through like noticing textures. I wear quite a lot of big jewelry, which I use to kind of use the sensation of touch to bring me back, or you can use smells and sounds around you. So once you're out of that limbic state and you're back into, like, I kind of think of it as your true you, that calm state, then you can maybe start to think about those questions. Well, is that true? Like, have I got too much work to do? Am I really feeling this? And just start to really question some of those thoughts and decide whether they're true or not.
Okay, I love that. So you're talking about, so we talk a lot about mindfulness, don't we? And taking a breath. And certainly one of the best pieces of advice I got given was each time you go from one classroom to a next or one meeting to a next, as you're going towards the door of that place, take a moment and say, okay, how do I want to present myself as I come into this room? So am I going to just go in and say to kids, oh my goodness, here we go, another lesson, we can get through this? Or are we going to say, wow, we've got another hour here, we've got this, we're going to be amazing? It's that sort of thing. But you're talking about using more senses. So talk a little bit more about that.
So like I said, I like to use the sensation of touch. I find that quite an easy one to grab onto. So using what you've got around you, jewelry, like I said, it might be, and you can do this quite subtly as well. So if you're in a meeting, you can resort to that. It's quite difficult to stop and take some nice big deep breaths if you're in the middle of a difficult meeting or a challenging conversation, but it's not difficult to rub a surface or to sort of use your hair, or maybe if you're wearing, I like corduroy trousers for that because they've got good texture, or something that you're wearing that you can do in a much more subtle way, so that sensation of touch can just bring you back to the present. And the more you practice that, the easier coming back into that present moment will become.
That's amazing. So it's a little bit like an adult version of a fiddle or fidget toy.
Yeah, but more subtle than one of those fidget spinners.
Yes. Okay. I love that. It's really practical. So we've gone to step, I don't know if we're on step 3 or 4. Where would you go once you've noticed where the triggers are? What would be the next thing for people to do?
So then it's once you've noticed that triggers, it really is that practicing. So I notice a trigger, it's a red flag, and it's practicing getting out of your head and back into the present moment and back into your body in that time, so that you can decide whether that trigger is real or not, whether it's a useful thought that actually you want to have. Like in positive intelligence, he talks about like holding your hand on the hot stove. So listening to that self-talk when it's unhelpful is basically akin to putting your hand on the hot plate and not taking it off, and it burning and burning and burning, you know, and causing great damage to you. Whereas you can put it on, you test that it's hot. Okay, that's hot. I'm going to take it off. So it's kind of the same thing, like listening for the trigger, noticing that it's, in the end, the dream is that you can notice before the trigger's kicked in. Like, you know, you can notice some of those warning signs, some of those physical feelings you might have in your body that alert you to the fact that one of these monsters is chiming up and about to start messing with you, and deciding what you're going to do with that. Is this useful? Am I going to listen to it? Yes. Okay, but I'm going to do that in a controlled way. So I'm going to take a few breaths and then think about it. Or no, I'm just shutting it down because it is of zero help to me right now.
Wow. That's really interesting. And do each of us just have one type of sort of mind monster? So is there, like, I often used to feel in school, you know, I can't ever do enough or be good enough. As much as I do, it's never enough. Do we just have that one internal dialogue, or are there more saboteurs?
Oh, Rowena, there are many. Sadly, if only it was one. So the idea in positive intelligence is there's like the boss of it, which is the judge, which is kind of the most common one. It's like, you know, judging yourself, you're not good enough, you're not X enough, whatever, fill in the blank. Judging other people, so they're not X enough. And in schools, sadly, judgment, you know, spirals round and round and round, because the whole system is based on people judging one another, one another's work, one another's, you know, output, input, all of that. So one person's judge can trigger another person's judge, and before you know it, you know, there's a big maelstrom. And I think that's quite common in schools, sadly, and I'm sure lots of other workplaces too. I know schools, so I know that it's common there. And then the idea is that everybody has a top kind of 2 or 3 other saboteurs that will chime up after the judge. So I kind of like to imagine it like the phone call comes into the judge, right? Hey, she's feeling there's a tricky situation here. She's going to need your help. Not really, but, you know, and the judge is like, right, okay, first off, I'm going to tell her that she's not good enough to be doing this. And then I'm going to need some help from you guys. So you can tell her that, I don't know, she needs to do more work. You can tell her that the work she's done is never going to be good enough, so she better keep going. And you can tell her that everyone's going to be really angry with her at the end of doing this work, so she needs to work out how she's going to keep everyone happy. So, like, sadly, we have a bit of a tag team going on in our heads, which is what makes it so challenging.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I think the thing that springs to my mind is how when I used to go and as a deputy observe in classes, my last school was a lovely school, so the lessons tended to be fantastic. But you know, we gave 2 positives and something to work on, because there's never a perfect lesson, is there? And teachers would say to me, you know, thanks for the feedback, Rowena, but the only one that I can hear and that stays with me is the one where I have to work with, you know, something that I need that isn't good enough effectively. And the 2 positives, which were the overarching impact of the lesson, that was almost meaningless to them. They didn't hear it. So how can we change that dialogue in staff?
I mean, that is really hard, because that's human nature. We are designed to look for the risks. That's how we've managed to stay alive for so long. We're designed to be on the constant lookout for risks and dangers. And that, while it's not a, you know, tiger chasing you down the road, it's a risk and danger to you right there, that feeling of not being good enough, or then the worry spiral that comes off that, which is in the end, I'm going to get the sack and I'm going to be destitute potentially, you know, whatever that worry is for you. But it's so that I'm not going to embarrass myself by saying a number, because I don't know what the number is, but there is some crazy ratio of positives to negative, where you would have, this is made up number, but say like for every 9 great things that happened in the day, you're going to remember the one rubbish thing that happened, the one bad thing that happened, because that in the end is what's going to help prepare you for the dangers in life. So that's a really big question to answer, of how can we change that in staff. But again, like, feel like a bit of a stuck record, but it would just be staff understanding that and having that knowledge that this is human nature. This is the way our brains are wired. So not to take it as a personal assault on us. It's just the way that we're wired. And actually, so working with whole teams on this, which I've done with some schools, is a really, really positive way of doing it. Because like, it's great. One leader knows this about themselves and they know about everyone else, but no one else does. It's like, well, that's great for that one leader. And they might tell a few people, but really for a school to change its mindset on that, it has to be a whole huge top down. Everybody understands that this is the way our brains work, and everybody's there to support each other in that respect and gently challenge each other too. You know, if you're giving feedback and that teacher is saying, oh, Mal, all I remember is you saying I should have sharpened the pencils before the lesson, then if the team knows that this is the way our brains work, you can say, like, you know, Rowena, that this is your judge speaking. So do you want to take a few minutes to just like get yourself back into a calm headspace? The real Rowena come out and we can have a chat about it differently. Or likewise for me, I might, if I was giving the feedback, I might say, oh, do you know what? I'm just going to take a minute because I feel like I'm kind of caught in a bit of an internal dialogue here. And like the power of everybody knowing that, just beautiful.
I love that common language. And actually, so again, in my first book, I do a chapter on this because it's the juggle of the school day. And the ratio is actually we need 5 positive to every negative that we get.
I knew there was a number.
The research shows that if it goes over 11 positives to every negative, it's false. But actually, if we go much under the 5, we can't thrive. But you only need the 5 to thrive. But I gave an example of when I went into school one morning, and I can't remember exactly, but it was something like I dropped some books as I went in, and someone was really kind picking them up for me. And then I couldn't get my arm to open the door because I had so many books I'd been marking overnight. Someone else held the door. And then someone else, said, oh, morning, Rowena. And they said, oh, have you finished that report yet? I asked for yesterday and my heart sank. So I'm on 2-1 there. But then someone else pointed out that my jumper was on inside out. So I went up to 3-1. And I watched my ratio that morning, and it's very quick, especially in schools where we walk in and people go, oh, hi, Ro. Oh, did you finish that last night? Or, have you got that document for me? Or, oh, are we meeting later to do that data thing that you said you'd prepare? And our ratio can go up, down, incredibly quickly. But if we're aware of what we're needing, that we need that 5-1, we as a team, again, we can say to each other, wow, I love that jumper on you today. Or, how did your football match go for your son last night? Little things. It's literally nanoseconds of recognizing. And it's exactly the same for children, that we all need that 5-1 to be able to start to thrive. And actually, in a really busy school environment, that can be really tough for staff to be able to access. So I love you bringing that up, Rachel. Thank you.
And that's the key, isn't it? Like you said, it's busy. Everybody's got their things they need to get done, whether that's lessons taught, books marked, lessons plans, meetings, whatever it is, at whatever level you're in at that school. Like everybody's sort of jumped on that treadmill the minute they've walked through the door. And so everyone's already kind of heightened state if they're not aware of that. And everyone's just kind of like, one school I worked in internationally, I had to really learn a different way of being, because I would kind of be like, hi Rowena, can we do that? And they'd be like, hi Rachel, how are you today? I'd be like, oh yes, no, hi, yeah. And it was really, really key in this, from a cultural perspective, really key in this school to have that kind of like preamble beforehand. But because schools I've been in before were just like, right, get going. And that's the beauty of international as well, just learning from different cultures and being in different environments. But yeah, that was a little slap around the face sometimes.
Well, we're all learning, aren't we? If we stop learning, Rachel, we're stuffed. So, well, I'm so grateful. I feel like I've taken such a lot away from this podcast. I know everyone else will too. If they want to find you, where's their best place to find you online, Rachel, if they want to be in contact with you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. If you look for Rachael Kobylecki, difficult to spell, but also if you look for School Leader Coaching, and I have a website, which is schoolleadercoaching.co.uk, and there you can find out all about me. I've recently joined Instagram and TikTok too under School Leader Coaching, so yeah, it'd be great to see you on there as well.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thanks, Rowena.
Thanks for listening. I hope you took something of value from today. If you want to connect, I'm at rowenahicks.com, or I have a Facebook group, which is Preventing Teacher Burnout. So I look forward to connecting to you at one of those.